Hi, it's Matthew Holt. It's THCB Gang. It's episode 69, maybe. On October the 21st, I am the THCB founder, publisher, at Bodybuilder on Twitter. And with me, one of my favorite people in the world, this is Alex Drane, who these days is the CEO of Archangels. That's all I get. Yeah, that's it. Now we have to stop sharing and we go live. And just you and me chatting.
What are we going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk. We have a lot to talk about.
We do.
We've known each other for a while, so we have something to talk about. Not that long.
I don't think it's really that long.
Only that time I asked you on a date in 1997, you disappeared, never saw you again.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's not true. That's not true. Look at the camera. All right. Hi. All right. So why, who are we and why we're here? So normally, as you know, the THCB Gang has a big group of people. And Alex, you've actually been on it once.
Yes, way back when. I loved it.
Way back when. And you push
I talk too much.
Should have you on it more.
I want to be on it more.
You are incredibly busy doing incredibly nice stuff.
That's what you say now because you feel guilty because he hasn't invited me back.
That's what she says. But your name has been taken not in vain. And we're going to get to this towards the end. We have about 40 minutes together. We're going to get to this towards the end. Your name has been taken not in vain, but by one of your great friends, who's also a regular gang member, who is Jeff Goldsmith, who is the grand old man of healthcare forecasting and futurism.
I was at Goldie's wedding.
Oh, no word. And what's the first one?
No, second one.
Yeah. He's so on the gang we have Jeff and Ian Morrison quite often together, right? So the two grand old men.
Hi, Ian.
Anyway, however, this is about you. So I wanted to talk to you because a couple of things. One is I'm in Boston doing an East Coast tour.
He always stays with me when he's in Boston.
Except this time you've moved up to Beverly. Some people were taking breadcrumbs on the train I took a train up here to come see you this morning as to where I was going, and you live in a fabulous place up in Beverly. Very nice. It's beautiful, and more importantly, you're doing amazing work, and your faithful lieutenant, Sarah Savings Winay, is
in the other room.
In the other room.
Shout out to Sarah.
We were trying to get her to come on. She was, no, that's what Alex does. I don't go on the stage.
She's working with theater, right?
Do you remember I forced her on the stage one time at Health 2.0, and she was like,
never
again. You can't do that to me. I said, no, okay. Yeah. I get the division of responsibility. Some person does all the work, and somebody else is on stage taking all the
100%. and Aaron, also co-founder at Archangels, kicks ass. A lot of people at Archangels kick ass, but Sarah is my love.
All right. So, but we're going to start like way the hell back in the beginning. I want to say I can't remember when you weren't coming on, taking my invitation on a date back in 1996, 7, 8. But then you had a startup, and then you found this other technology buried at UPMC. Am I right? Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon, right? And that became ELISA. So what you've been doing for a long time is kind of encapsulated in what you started doing at ELISA. So just tell people what ELISA did and what that technology was, and then we're going to go and talk about what's on the chart behind us.
Yes, that's so fun.
We'll get there. So tell people who don't know, because ELISA is, I hate to say it, I know you're very, very young.
Oh my gosh, I'm 50.
It's kind of ancient history for.
It's ancient history. No, it is. Right. But I will tell you, I hear more and more that people who worked at ELISA are off doing extraordinary things because they learned so much at ELISA. Okay,
so what did ELISA do? It was a technology for doing what?
So from a technology perspective, we had, I'm very proud about this, the patent on using, by the way, this is a water bottle that will be recycled, both the boys, my boyfriend. Our technology had a patent on over-the-telephone speech recognition. So we're the very first ever company to use speech recognition in an outbound capacity. And the reason why that's important is the reason we wanted to focus on healthcare and focus on outbound is our perspective was anybody who's calling into healthcare is already getting some kind of support. And so our passion was at that point, we guessed it was about 85% of people who were not utilizing the healthcare system. And we're like, how do we make sure that they're getting access to getting their, mammogram, their colon cancer screening, whatever it might be. So we got these extraordinary initial customers to work with us. And what we learned early on, what they were willing to pay us for was what at that point we called HEDIS. I don't know if we call it HEDIS anymore. Probably not.
Stars now.
Stars, yeah. Back then it was HEDIS. And we were paid by, health plans or in some cases a health system or an employer to reach out using over the telephone outbound speech recognition to get somebody to get their colon cancer screening, to get their mammogram. And what you learn, not very quickly, it took us a while to figure this out. Shout out to Susanna Fox, who taught us about the value of the open-ended question. If we said to somebody, will you get your mammogram? And they said, no, following all the behavioral change techniques of reinforcing for somebody, do you plan to do this? Right? No, I don't. Okay, well, why not? And we would go through all the reasons that the current literature would say that somebody wasn't going to. And if somebody said no, 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 no to each of those reasons, then we ask the open-ended questions. Okay, well, then why won't you? And what we heard back was over and over and over again, because my mother with Alzheimer's just moved in, because I hate my boss so much I can't breathe, because I'm pretty sure my partner is cheating, because insert every deeply emotional reason people don't take care of themselves well, right? Like, why don't I take care of myself? And so what we came around to was maybe we're going about this all wrong. And maybe the biggest diseases in the US are actually what we call these life challenges or unmentioned.
Stop. You're going too fast.
Yes. Okay.
Go back.
Sorry.
So, no, it's good. We're going to get that. We're going to get to all this.
Okay.
So yeah, you've got, as you'll notice, watching this, calming her down is not the easiest
I'm
thing.
sweating my palms.
No, she's not. When we used to, I used to have a Health 2.0, and she would say, and I want to do these 87 things. I said, there are like 45 minutes for your session. You're trying to put 17 hours, and you managed to put 17 hours, and never quite was.
Well, you did 65
never quite was 45. Well, I used to tell you it was 45 minutes, because if I told you it was 70 minutes, you'd have taken in 4 days. All right. But slow down. So let's go back to the business, because somewhere in the middle of this, right, you're not only reaching out to people on behalf of like Aetna's and Humana's and Blue Cross of Florida and who knows who else. You're also running a business, right?
Yeah.
So you had a place in, Needham? No, what was your office? You had a big office.
So we were actually in Beverly.
Beverly, sorry.
Believe it or
Beverly.
not.
Yes, that's
in
right.
the Cumming Center when we first got started.
Right. I remember going there and going, hang on, it used to be a shoe factory.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
that's right.
It's called the shoe.
The shoe. And anyway, so give me, so you're not only getting fascinated about working with clients and reaching out to people, whether they have had medication, or whether they had, medication reminders, or whatever it was, right? Trying to improve them health.
Whatever we could get paid to do was what we were doing.
Yeah.
Shamelessly, because we were bootstrappers.
Absolutely. You're bootstrapping. And this company became how many people by sort of 2010?
When I left, it was like 220.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of people, if you can manage, right? Now you had some help. Right? It wasn't just you. Lucas, right? Sarah and some bunch of others,
Cam,
right?
Amazing people.
And many of them are doing other, Goddy's running a
He's running a very
right? He's running a big company now, right? And what's it?
I don't know.
So yeah, all them people doing stuff. But tell me a bit about the experience of how many it was like. How many at the start, and how many? I know you both got there over 200, but what was it like growing that first getting that first contract, getting the first things going, trying to make the technology work, trying to do all that stuff? Terrifying. But I mean, how did you get it from there in sort of 2000 to like 2005 or 6? I mean, we connected around 2004 again. So 2005, 6, you were then real. You had a bunch of clients and stuff was going, right? And that's the experience that a lot of people I work with now in the startup world are going through, right? I've got the first company. So talk about that. And this was not in the days when people were writing, I would say $200 million checks. $2 million checks were hard to come by. So what?
Well, we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
It was terrifying, but it was thrilling. There's a statement, Lucas introduced me to it. It was a slide. I think he got it from like someplace, called The Long Dark Night of the Innovator. And it described perfectly what it feels like, right? Like when you first get started, you're like, we are freaking so smart. This is genius. We're going to change the world. And then as you begin to try and do all those things, you realize how wrong you were, and you fail and you fail and you fail. And you're like, your sense of self and your belief in what you're doing, you don't lose your belief, but you believe your belief, that you lose your belief you can do it.
Yeah.
Down until you fall into the pits of despair. And then slowly but surely, you usually begin, if you just keep at it and keep at it. And I think one of the great things about bootstrapping is you can move really, 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 really fast. One of the great things about good investors is they enable you to move really, really, really fast. You don't have time to build 18 Excel spreadsheets around why you should be doing something slightly differently. You just got to go. And the value of our platform was incredibly transparent. So the people who we were ultimately serving, right, would let us know immediately if they didn't like what we were doing, because it was the human who was picking up the phone, and they would hang up.
Yeah.
And if they hung up, then they weren't, A, we would know that metric, and B, they certainly weren't going to do whatever it was that we were asking them to do. And so you listen really hard. And the other thing we did was we also had a way at the end that we asked people, is there anything else that you want to leave? And it was extraordinary because now there's recognition of the power of voice. And Eliza used a real voice. It wasn't a commercialized voice.
Actually, half of it was you, right?
For many years, it was me. And
because I remember you called me when we did the Health 2.0, when you did a little survey for the people coming. And I went, hi, it's Eliza. I went, no, I recognize that voice.
Yeah. Well, you
it was kind of mutated. It was mutated.
So this is a great thing for startup folks to hear. So on our board early on was Tom Delbego. Tom Delbego is founder of Open Notes, very, very big, very well-known physician. And Tom was on our board from the very beginning. And I had Tom he listened to the very first one we ever did, and we'd had professional voice talent recorded. Mm-hmm. And Tom listened to it, and we were going live the next day with Fallon. And Tom said, this is crap. Like, no one's going to listen to it, because it basically sounded like the movie phone. Hello, and thank you for talking to Eliza. And nobody, especially in the privacy of their home, we were talking about things that are deeply personal. That was off-putting. And he said, I want you to know that none of the humans I'm serving would like that voice. And so because we were in a freaking panic, I recorded it that night, like figured out, got the recording, which is stuff, and we recorded it, went live the next day. And Tom said, we sent him the sample call, and he was like, no, that was a great voice. He didn't know it was me. Yeah. That was a great voice. It was so unprofessional. And so we laughed about that for years, but it is important because it had warmth, right? Because I really, really cared about what we were doing. And the voice is filled with so much. You can't fake compassion. You can't fake empathy. And so if you really care about what you're doing, that comes across, and it came across. People are now taking, much later, I don't know how much you did. People are taking stuff back out of voice, right? Including somebody I ran into last night, because I've known a little bit at HLTH, who were called ellipsis, who were monitoring depression and anxiety out of the voice. Well, Kajito was doing that 15 years ago. Yeah, there are markers for all sorts of health-related conditions in your voice. Absolutely.
All right, so now talk a little bit about the clients that you had, because they're all still your friends, as far as I can tell. Right? Well, I want to, you. Whenever I've met with you, and even with people from health plans or PBMs or whatever they're like this incredibly strong relationships of finding the people inside those organizations who are kind of, what were they?
Insane.
Insane.
No, I'll tell you. Like,
we'll tell them all that.
No, I say that with the greatest respect, right? Like, if you walk around my house, you see all these quotes about crazy people, because those are the folks. So anybody who was Eliza's customer in those early days, people thought they were crazy, right? We were like, we're going to use a computer speech automation to call people in their homes and talk to them about their health. People were like, yeah, that's never going to work. We're like, we think it is, and we're going to try it. So anybody who at that point in time was sort of seeing around a corner or brave enough to try it. And I'll tell you another funny story. We also made terrible, terrible mistakes. No. Yeah. In a startup? Or in an American corporation of any kind? This is an example of a terrible, terrible mistake. And to any startup, as you make these mistakes, it's how you respond to the mistakes, right? That builds our relationships. Our early Eliza customers, many of them are my best friends. And part of it is because we went through the fire together, right? And we survived, and we never stopped making mistakes. So this is I have to tell you the story, because it's Horizon, Richard Popiel, Christy Bell. We were running a campaign over the weekend for people to get their flu shots. This is way, way, way back when. So we're calling it Medicare population. And we did not yet have automated controls. So you turned on the application, and then you turned off the application. Okay. So the flu reminder was turned on Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, should have been turned off on Saturday at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. The next morning, Sunday morning, I'm with my family. We have no babies yet, and Antonio and I aren't even hitched. And Lucas calls, and Lucas calling on a Sunday morning. That's the CEO, by the way. CEO, yeah. And Lucas said, where are you? And I was like, I'm at my parents' house. You need to sit down. And I was like, I remember the blood like draining from my body. And I was like, what do you mean I need to sit down? He goes, go outside and sit down. And I remember walking outside and sitting down and like facing out into the yard. And he said, last night, between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., we called. It was like 2,145 Horizon members to remind them to get their flu shot. And in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. If the phone rings in the middle of the night, you are sure that someone has died. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And so to not only have the phone ring, and you're like, oh my God, someone's dead. But then you pick it up and it's this nice person reminding you to get your flu shot, right? Like so bad. So we assembled, first I like lay down on the ground. I was like, oh my God, it's done, we're done. We called someone who I love so much about Lucas. He's so good. We always were we were radically transparent. We're still radically transparent. If you screw it up, screw it up. So we called the customer immediately, Richard and Christy, and the team that was working with them. And by 11:30 that morning, we had assembled at Eliza about 20 friends and family. And we called every single one of those people that we had called in the middle of the night before 5 o'clock that night. And I think we had to send out 3 fruit baskets because everybody, we just were like, oh my God, we are so sorry. We made a mistake. And Richard and Christy were so loving in that, I think partially because we were immediately radically transparent. We did something about it. We did everything we could. They forgave us and went on to become one of our greatest partners.
That's amazing. I'd never heard that story. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're calling
middle of the night.
Little old ladies on each other saying, I'm so sorry to disturb you. We screwed up.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, and they were so, people were so loving, and there were a couple people that were genuinely super pissed off. They got a fruit basket. They probably threw it away. They were right to be pissed. It was awful. Well, I bet they got their flu shot though.
I hope so.
Right?
I got mine last week. You didn't call me.
I should have.
True. Okay, so I'll let you talk about the emotionals now because you found that out, and I'm going to move the screen a little bit, and you can see in the top corner there it says emotionals. Yeah. And we, of course, you gave the stage. You gave the stage to engage. Indu and I gave the stage to you.
You and Indu gave the stage to us way back when.
But this is you said to me, this is this amazing thing, and we should think about it. So you started. So say the rest of it.
So what we've learned over time was everyone in healthcare was so focused on chronic conditions and HEDIS metrics, aka STAR metrics. And we were like, that's not it, right? What is bothering people is caregiver stress, financial stress, relationship stress, and workplace stress. And we partnered with Wendy Lynch, who's a genius. Yeah. And we actually it's funny, this was a fight between Sarah and I. So any of you people out there.
You fight with Sarah?
Sarah and I fight all the time. This fight.
You ever win?
Oh, never.
Yeah.
So this fight was, Sarah said, I was like, okay, we've got to do this thing. We've got to recognize that those 4 things are the biggest diseases in the US, and we should focus on that instead of just diabetes or cardiovascular disease. And Sarah said, I agree. Let's get some data behind it. And I was like, well, there's all these studies. If you dig into it, we can find these studies. And she's like, no, we're going to build our own tool. We're going to develop our own data. And I was like, oh, it's ridiculous. That'll take so long. She was 100% correct. So we invented the vulnerability index, which looked at the presence and magnitude of these 4 unmentionables: caregiver stress, financial stress, relationship stress, workplace stress, against your personal balance of positive and negative coping factors, which we called buffers and magnifiers. And we measured how all that impacts, controlling for age and other factors, your actual physical health. And we're able to show that if you had one of these unmentionables, you were way more likely to actually come down with diabetes or have back pain or have these other physical manifestations of this emotional health.
Amazing. And you did a lot of work. If we look at the camera, we had 6 years, 7 years, a long time on stage.
Every stage. It was the first year was 2010.
2010, I think, through 2016, I think, maybe 15, 16.
Yeah.
We did that. And we had amazing people on stage. Not the least of which was, you mentioned already, Susanna Fox.
Love you, Susanna.
We love Susanna Fox, but there's so many more.
Oh my God. Like Ramin Bastani, who's now like crushing it. Yeah. I mean, everyone. I mean, you just name somebody who's doing something super cool now, and they were probably on the unmeasurable stage.
And they were on their 5 minutes. And you said,
no, our guest.
You would say to me, you said to me, we can't have this guy on for 5 minutes. I said, let's try and crunch him down to 7. Because
it was amazing.
It was amazing. So
in fact, I think you can still find every single unmentionables video. I think you can on our site. I think you can probably on your site.
We may get into corporate takeovers in a minute.
Okay.
In a sec. Actually, let's get to it now. All right. So there you are. Eliza is now going great guns. You have 200 people. It's 2014, 15?
2015.
2015. And along the way, now you've got to make some decisions about what you do about the company. Yeah. And you make a decision.
Yeah.
Right. What was the decision?
We decided to sell 51% of our company to private equity.
Okay.
Was that a good decision?
Well, it wasn't a terrible decision.
No, I mean, I think private equity is extraordinary at pattern recognition.
Well, number one, eventually, I would say the end result is that they then sold it on,
yes,
including the 49%.
Yes,
which you still had, and some employees and the early investors still had.
Yeah.
For much more later, so not a terrible financial decision.
No. Financially,
also for the first chunk, there were people obviously working there who'd been working their ass off for 10 years who wanted to get a bit of a result out and the rest of it, and so that thing's good. Plus, you have a lovely beach house, so don't worry. Same with my. God. Okay, but let's talk about this thing. Same with me and after I have a lot of places to go skiing now, and
let me just own 100%.
Yeah,
I am naive, and I was naive because I remember having a conversation with our primary contact, and I was like, you're not going to sell us in 5 years. You're going to fall in love with us. You're going to let us keep building what we're building. And this person was like, no, that's not how it works. So I was like, oh, you just don't. I literally was like, you just don't realize. No. He was 100% correct. He was 100% honest, and I was stupid.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this happens a lot. And I was kind of kidding before we did this about it's Behind the Music with Alex Drane, the rock star. I think it's great, it's amazing. She's fly. I can't believe you didn't know Behind the Music. But the arc of the Behind the Music of VH1 is, the unknown band hits it big and it's playing stadiums. It's all great, and they're all doing drugs and they all fall apart. And, they're in rehab and life is awful, and they start coming back. But let's just. We call
that the love vote. When I was growing up, that was the love vote. Like you get on the love vote, everything's awesome, and something terrible happens, and then in the end, everything's awesome again.
But here's the bit. So I remember we had a long walk across the Golden Bridge.
We did. Yes. It was cathartic.
You were in the middle of the love boat part.
Yeah.
Okay. But what happened then was that the bit that you loved the most, right? Yeah. Which was demonstrated, that kind of was taken away, and there was a fight. And you left not happily, what I was saying.
Which, by the way, was so stupid on my part, right? I wish there's so many things that you wish you did better. I wish I had been more elegant because I was mad. I was super cranky, and I was cranky because, I think for me, Eliza was truly a labor of love. Archangels is a labor of love. I get very, very, very like full body into things, and I loved it. It was my baby. It was other people's babies too, but we had this baby together, and I didn't want to go. And I wanted it to go forth, and I wanted it to make a huge splash around the Unmentionables. I thought the Unmentionables was genius. The Unmentionables is, of course, now what we would call the social determinants of health.
Well, I would say the reason that it's come up so much in the last 2 years, 3 years, and we talked a lot about so much on THCB, and your name always comes up, is because, things people have to talk about. Yes, there were academics writing about this way back when, about the impact of poverty and blah 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 on all the stuff that we talk about. Now we're talking about equity, and it's great that stuff's all written about. But that stuff's been in the literature forever, and it never made a paper's been a difference in the way that actually works in the real world, right?
Until we got the stage at Health 2.0.
And look, but it is true. You bang that drum super hard, and you turn people and the crazy people, at Cigna.
Joan Kennedy, love you.
Who is, as far as I can see, despite Joan Kennedy / Harvey's, involvement with you, seems like you're doing pretty well at Cigna, right? Isn't she running? She's running the whole thing, right? Yeah. The whole Level North, and then Sarah Islam is doing her thing at.
Sarah Islam is now at Blue Shield, California.
Running Blue Shield, California, this whole transformation thing. So so actually being associated with you wasn't that much of a career killer as it might have been.
I don't know if they'd want to be associated with me, but I'm very proud of you.
Come on, anyway. But more importantly, that has become, something that's a real thing for real people with money. Now, you can argue back and forth. Is it actually the duty, quote unquote, of the healthcare system to have to take care of these issues, which are probably not healthcare, right? Should we be worried about housing and relationship stress? But if you look at the other things going on, right, the explosion of mental health online and the integration now of mental health with primary care, we just came from the LTH conference. That one, all these people building primary care, virtual primary care with, as Jess Matter says, with a side of mental health, with the navigation, all the stuff that we need. A lot of that is around integrating all of that different sort of mental, social, physical stuff together and putting coaches around it and doing all the stuff that we do. And you can see, it's by no means is it uniform across American healthcare, but it's by more starting. So you did an amazing thing.
Oh, I think we did an amazing thing. Thank you for giving us
rubbish.
everyone at Eliza, who in those days.
You had lots of help, but any movement needs a leader, you leader. Let's be clear. Stop.
Thank you.
Oh, good. All right. But so now, okay, you had a bit of an idea. They were like grumpiness walking across the bridge with me and some other stuff. And then everyone's saying, what's Alex doing? And people were asking me, what's Alex doing? I said, she's got a thing. There was like a website, the thing, and it's like caregiving. And then, you went to work at a Walmart.
Yeah. So Sarah,
you probably are not a typical Walmart employee, I would have to say. Maybe you are, I don't know.
Well, I think to the extent that Walmart associates, call them associates, like love the people who are coming through their store. That was very typical. To the extent that lots of Walmart associates have very deeply personal conversations with people who they come to know each other. Like they came to know my customers. But when Sarah and I left Eliza, we went to go start Archangel's Take One. And Archangel's Take One had some elements of what Archangel's Take Two has, but we made the mistake of not learning from Eliza, which was we were serving unpaid caregivers because we think of caregiving as like the epicenter of life sucks disease, which was our other name for the unmentionables, do you remember? And we were going to serve these unpaid caregivers who had come into the healthcare system. And in retrospect, when it didn't work, we're like, duh. Plus we were doing it through health plans, and some of the ones we were working with were a little more traditional. And we always believe in, you gotta be carnal in the way that you're sharing. You gotta have real words and speak real language. People say dumb it down. It's not dumbing it down, it's smartening it up, right? How can you speak in a way that reeks of authenticity, radical transparency? So most of our early partners were like, no. So it was a humongous failure. You know that around the same time, I also found out that I also had a brain tumor. And this was after, 6 years earlier, my beautiful sister-in-law had died of GBM in a textbook case of overtreatment, hence the start of Engage with Grace. Thank you again, my co-founder in that, Matthew Holt.
99%, 1%, let's be clear. Go on.
So when all of these things happen, right, you've had this baby company, Eliza, that you're madly in love with, and then you do a terrible job at the end, and so you're not there anymore. And then you try and start this thing for caregiving, and then somewhere in there you find out you have a brain tumor, which they tell you to do watchful waiting, which is a little bit anxiety producing. I used to be in meetings, I remember, because nobody knew forever. And I'd be in meetings.
I was in a meeting when I knew, and the other people in the meeting didn't know, and you started talking about the company who got the second opinion from, and then you went, it was like, I'm my friend. I was going, I'm sitting there barreling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I love you.
Right.
Well, so the thing that I think people, for me and anyone who's dealing with a serious diagnosis who has not shared it, you don't share it for the same reason that most people don't share things, because I didn't want people to worry about me, and I didn't want people to treat me differently, and I didn't want to focus on it. And what I would feel often in meetings is that there were two of me. There was the me that was sitting at the table, that was present and engaged and talking with my experience people knew I had. And then there was the other me that was like, what's really fucking stupid? Oops, excuse the language. What's stupid?
We can
leave it out. What is stupid is oh my gosh, I'm really sorry. Terrible. What is stupid, is when you get, this is an example. I remember getting into the elevator at the hospital, and those floors are labeled. And I had to press, and everyone gets in, and everyone's watching who's pressing what floor, because then they're looking at them like, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? And I had to press the brain tumor floor. And then the whole rest of the ride up in the elevator, everyone's like, now the good news is I was a gift for everyone in the elevator, because whoever was stressed out, they're like, ooh, well, that's brain tumor. That's brain cancer. Like, she's really got it bad. Now, luckily for me, it was meningioma. My beautiful my sister-in-law, hers was glioblastoma, and glioblastoma is terrifying. And she had pressed that same button. So I know how lucky I am. I knew how lucky I was from the second that they told me what it was that I had. Found incidentally, I never had any symptoms. So yeah, we have to be really careful as we're thinking about things. Who's the invisible you at the table next to you, at the seat next to you? Be designing for them as well.
Amazing. And you told about your recovery, which was amazing. I was terrified. I was getting texts from your husband, your boyfriend, and going, oh God.
Yeah.
And he said, no, she's coming through. And the first talk to you was great.
It was like 7 years of watchful waiting. It was a 9 where I had, it was in the center of my head. I never had any symptoms, thank goodness. We were talking about brain surgery humor. Like, my brain surgeon, who's a freaking rock star, said, well, I was like, well, what's going to happen? And he said, well, to get to the bad part, it was in the middle of my head, which is a very, very dangerous surgery. We've got to go through the good. And I was like, well, when's the right time to have surgery? He said, the best time to have brain surgery, as they say, Alex, is the day before you have to. And I was like, how is that funny? That's not funny. But that is when I had it. And it was 9.5 hours. And I was super screwed up for a little bit. For about 6 weeks, I really did not, for the first couple of days, like I didn't know how to get out of the car. I didn't know how to brush my teeth. I didn't know how to do anything. Scary, but then you learn, and now I'm back.
And
exactly.
Driving a car like a maniac and all the stuff you normally do.
Yeah. 4 years.
That's fantastic. Well, okay, so let's, we have 10 minutes. So this is, where's the camera? There you go. This is What's Your Score, Archangels. What is the product and the business of Archangels?
So you can think of Archangels in two ways, and you will understand this because you have the history.
I understand this, but there may be people watching who don't understand this. So.
No, but I'm saying it to you
You're being my buddy, but I'm bullying you like
right,
one of the startups in coaching.
Okay.
Do your pitch.
So Archangels is both a movement and a platform that is reframing how unpaid caregivers are seen, honored, and supported using a combination of data and stories, and doing that through public and private platforms. And the reason we do that is a huge number of unpaid caregivers have to quit their jobs or never even get to start a job in the first place because they have this other job called being a caregiver. Mm-hmm. And so the thesis in a nutshell is being an unpaid caregiver is a job. You should get credit for that job. Go to archangels.org and you can figure out how to do that.
That was amazing. I hadn't seen it until today, but you can actually
we do that with Susanna
copy and paste out of that to say, here's how I put that skill into my resume or into my LinkedIn profile. Super.
One of the fundamental premises of everything that I've ever been lucky enough to work on is that shame is just a conversation waiting to be had. And many people who have had to leave their jobs right now, for example, then they feel as though they didn't have a job and they want to get back to the workforce, but they're like, but I have a 5-year gap on my resume because they were an unpaid caregiver. Let me tell you something, people, you don't have a gap on your resume. That is a huge job. And those jobs gives you unbelievably valuable transferable skills. And so Archangel's work, and Susanna is our co in this, is all about how do you translate. We have a skill builder. So if you go to archangels.org, you can download a badge called Archangel's Work, stick it on your resume, write it onto your application. If you're writing in your application, whatever it might be, because let's remember, most people aren't on LinkedIn, right? And the people who need jobs right now. And it gives you the language to describe what you did. And we're shifting the conversation from, oh, you had a gap on your resume. Hell frickin' no, you had an incredible job. You did an incredible job. Employers should be fighting with each other to hire people who've been Archangels, and they should be competing with each other to be the best, organization, best health plan, best employer in supporting unpaid caregivers
right now.
Yeah. So that's part of it. And the other thing we do is support intensity. So I'm going to give you a couple quick data points because I'm a data geek. So this was from the CDC study.
I'm amazed I got you through 40 minutes without any stats. But no, it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. So shout out to the COPE initiative. So Mark Sizer, Chuck Sizer, I'm sure the folks we did this with. We published 3 CDC studies. The last one was published in mid-June. And it looked at the impact of COVID on mental health, substance use, suicidal ideation, but specifically looking at the sandwich generation caregivers. So I'm going to give you some statistics that you have to steer onto your soul. So as of right now, because of COVID, 43% of adults in the US are unpaid caregivers. They don't think of themselves in that role. Most unpaid caregivers, you don't use the term caregiver. You're like, I'm not a caregiver. I'm just a son. I'm just a partner. I'm just a neighbor. I'm just a daughter, whatever it might be, husband. I don't like that word. So if you get past that, if you find a way to ask questions that doesn't get at it that way, you hear 43% of adults in the US, 70% of that 43% has at least one adverse mental health impact: anxiety, depression, or suicidal ideation. But I want to go a step further. So 23% of all adults in the US right now, anyone who's listening, if you're looking for a market opportunity, 23% of all adults in the US right now serving as an unpaid caregiver in a sandwich generation capacity, meaning they're caring for somebody as a parent or guardian people under 18 at the same time that they're caring for somebody or people over 18, right? Okay, 85% of that population has at least one adverse mental health impact. But now I want to share data in a different way. And if you're listening right now and you're not driving, write this down. There's 4 cohorts, okay? Cohort number 1 in the US right now is not in any unpaid caregiver role at all. And I'm going to use the metric that I would describe as the ultimate manifestation of behavioral health impact, suicidal ideation, which means serious suicidal thoughts in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Cohort 1, 4.5% of adults in the US right now have had serious suicidal ideation in the last 30 days. This data was published mid-June. Cohort 2, only serving in the role of parent or guardian to someone under 18, that's their only unpaid caregiver role, it doubles to 9%, which is terrifying. Cohort 3, I'm only serving as an unpaid caregiver to somebody over 18, it's 10%. You can't answer because you know the answer, but cohort 4 is the percentage of adults in the US who are sandwich generation caregivers, the percent of them who have serious suicidal ideation. Okay, Matthew, what is it?
Well, it's going to be more than 10.
Do you not know what it is? Seriously? Have we really not talked in that long? It's 52%. Yeah.
Wow.
So
half.
Yes.
Half.
No, more than half.
More.
Which essentially means if you walk into a room of sandwich generation caregivers, it is more normal than not that you will have thought about suicide in the last 3 days. It's 58% if you make it passive suicidal ideation. So I didn't actually think about how I would do it, but I was like, oh, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm okay. That's passive suicidal ideation.
Wow.
Yeah. So what Archangels does is we launch campaigns that get these gorgeous humans, the backbone of our society, with these incredible skill sets, right, to be seen in what they're doing. And those are campaigns that we run in partnership with our partners, which could be like State of New York, as well as in partnership with our health plans or employers. And that campaign, which by the way, we do through multiple channels because we know not everyone is lucky enough to be sitting where you and I are as a non-essential worker. Right. One of them is Any Care Counts. Shout out to Blue Cross of Massachusetts and the Mass Caregiving Initiative, by the way, for this one, which is our Massachusetts effort.
No. And you can now go to the website, Archangels.
Yeah, got me. And you can actually get your intensity index right now if you want to.
I just did a fake one.
And what were you?
I didn't do it. I did a fake one.
You gotta do it again.
I'll do it again for me.
So you do that campaign, then you crosswalk people over to get their score. And this is enriched like in data and data and data. Yeah. Wendy Lynch, again, right? Like follow the strictest and rigorous analytic mechanisms to get to about 23 questions, 2 minutes to take. It's been described by some, Nirav Shah, whom I adore, described it, doctor from Stanford, now ShareCare. He described it as a 2-minute therapy session.
It is.
It is it. It really is.
You don't think about it. That's, I'm really going through it. You don't think about, but yeah, this stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Am I thinking about how does it make me feel? And you don't, but people don't think about how it makes them feel. They're just doing it. And
because they're not taking care of it. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the person. So it puts you in the green, yellow, or red, gives you a score. Then most importantly, right? Like, let's not admire this problem, right? How do we take research to data to action to impact? Is it says, okay, here are the 2 things, and caregivers don't need a long freaking list. Yeah. It says, here are the 2 things most driving that intensity. And here are the 2 things most alleviating it. And that's where our job ends. And we then crosswalk people over. There are a lot of beautiful tools.
You literally you click in and it says, okay, now here is the Massachusetts caregivers. I don't know the resources, right? For Massachusetts.
It takes you to Mass Options, a Mass Family Caregiver Program, and it tells you the 2 things, positive, 2 things negative that you should work on. But if we partner with an employer, they might have an EAP that they've already paid for, in which case we unbundle that EAP and we crosswalk. Oh, your biggest issue was financial stress. Your biggest issue was siblings/relationships, right? I want to give you a couple other statistics. Yeah. If you're in the red, before COVID, 6% of adults in the US were in the red, caregivers. As of COVID, it's now 26%. For double duty caregivers, paid caregiver at the same time they were an unpaid caregiver, it pretty much doubles. Oh, what's really interesting is if we look at the source of where somebody found out about their intensity index, if somebody came from an ERG right now,
what's that
employee resource group, thank you. So this is somebody who's in a caregiver employee resource group. So they're self-aware, they know that they're in this, and they've joined this group. Maybe because Eliza told them, Archangels told them about that. Did you hear that? Maybe because Archangels told them about that, or maybe because they were already in it. Right. About 21% are in the red. But if there's a flyer in the break room, this was our old branding, right? And you find out about it through that, it's anywhere from 40 to 60% are in the red. Right. But that's the whole point. That's like Eliza 2.0, which is we don't want the people, we do want everybody, but if you're already getting supported, fantastic, gorgeous. We want to get out there to all those unpaid caregivers who are saying, I'm not a caregiver, and even if I am, I have no belief that anyone can help me, and I have no time to invest in it. We're going to find you. We're going to love on you. We're going to spread our big, fierce wings all over you, get you connected to these resources so you can be seen, honored, and supported. And that's what we do. And I love it.
So it's amazing. How close are you to getting, and I assume, you guys get paid to make some money if one of these organizations takes it on board, like Health Plan or Employer or whatever. How many organizations are you working with now, and how many I think
7.
But shouldn't this be like 7,000?
Sure, absolutely. But these are so like the state of New York.
I understand they're big. I'm across Massachusetts and the state of New York.
Yeah.
But is anybody else doing? I don't see. There's a lot of people who are working with sort of caregiver programs now, and you've moved that conversation along with Kevin, but sort of the bit in the middle, the interstitial tissue that you're doing here.
Yeah, no, that's what Eliza was the same thing, right? When we got started with Eliza, it was the problem we were solving was nobody is talking to individuals about what's actually making them feel ill.
Mm.
And so over all the years, when we came down, we're like, well, actually, if you can't solve this unpaid caregiver crisis, we can't sustainably and scalably bend trend in the country, and our country is going to go bankrupt. If you run the numbers, if you don't take care of that unpaid caregiver, you're screwed.
And there are resources out that help.
There are beautiful resources to help.
Absolutely. There could have been more in the infrastructure bill that were taken out. We're grumpy about that, but
we're going to keep that fight.
That'll keep going.
Archangels is gathering data not only for our partners, but then also we're aggregating that data and we're turning it back to, like New York, for example, we'll take that back to the state legislature and say, we need more investment in these things, because look at the impact on mental health, which, by the way, look at the impact associated with productivity, top and bottom line impact over and over and over. You can demonstrate.
Absolutely. All right. I have to let you go because you have to about 15 other things to go to in less than 2 minutes. But I would just say, what are you describing? Remember back to when we started this conversation, Eliza, we did this, we screwed up, we did the thing we called everyone in New Jersey in the middle of the night and all this, then we figured it out. So you kind of figured it out. So I think it's back to, there's that startup grind, there's a scaling. Don't sell it to a private equity company this time, please.
I'm not saying bad things, right? It was my stupidity. Truly, it was all on me because I didn't. So
okay, but
awesome.
But I'd also say
Alex is stupid.
Alex is young.
Alex is young.
Alex is young. She's done a lot, and this is like there's a long way to go in this. A lot more to go. Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love you. Thank you for always shining a light on these weird things that we get obsessed with.
Thank you for inviting me up to your new place in wherever the hell we are, near the shoe factory.
We're near the shoe factory.
Although there's an amazing view. It's on Twitter.
You can't say these things.
What, the review is amazing?
No.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. It's not amazing.
This is an amazing view. That's amazing. Is a bunch of stars.
They're amazing. Anyway, this is, now we have to go back to this has been Matthew Holt, the founder and publisher of THCB. This has been THCB Gang for October the 21st, a very special THCB Gang of 1 or 2, I guess, for us, with one of my favorites, Alex Drane, CEO of Archangels. You've heard a lot about it now.
Co-founder of Engage with Crane.
Co-founder of it.
With Matthew.
Founder of Engage with Grace.
So
Michael Jordan scored 69 points one day in one game, and there was a rookie who came on off the bench and scored 1 free throw. And the rookie was asked about the game. He said, it wasn't bad. Me and Michael Jordan shared 70 points. Okay. You're Michael Jordan. All right. Okay. But we are signing off. I will be back with THCB and back with the gang, a bunch of grumpy, curmudgeonly old men as it usually is, and hopefully some people. Now you've admitted you're coming back on.
Oh my gosh! You're coming back on much more. Invite me.
All right. Back on the gang next week, which will be October the 28th. It'll be back at our regular time of 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, rather than 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, which I did because that's what I got to get Alex this week.
Thank you.
And loved having you on.
I love you. Thank you.